My name is Colin Wiggins, and until quite recently I worked as a curator at the National Gallery in London. The artist that we're looking at today, Leon Kossoff, is one of those artists based in London who, when I started working at the National Gallery, I noticed artists using the collection. I'd see Francis Bacon there, I'd see Frank Auerbach there, and I'd see Leon Kossoff there, all looking to the collection, often drawing from the collection. Now, by the time I started working at the National Gallery, I already knew Leon because I'd written to him when I was a student, and he very kindly invited me to his studio to talk about his work. Quite honestly, he actually frightened me when I first met him, because the questions I was asking him were questions that he was quite uncomfortable with. He did not want to reveal his motivation for choosing certain subjects. Now, of course, this is an exhibition where we're looking at his London work. And London was where he had his home. If I just start by talking about the extraordinary Christchurch Spitalfields picture. Christchurch Spitalfields is a great, great building in the City of London, designed by the extraordinary eccentric architect Nicholas Hawksmoor. And Leon's family, who had been refugees, Ukrainian Jewish refugees, settled in London at the beginning of the 20th century, and they settled very, very near that church. And I wanted to know from Leon if his choice of this church as a subject that he worked from again and again and again and again was anything to do with autobiography. That's when I realized you do not ask Leon Kossoff questions like that. He said, no, it's not. This is fiction. If you think there's any connection between my autobiography and the places I'm painting, you've got it completely wrong. And he said that with a little bit of aggression. And I learned just to steer clear of that. And at the same time, I thought, this is why he's painting that church, because his family sought sanctuary there in the shadow of that church, and Leon is revisiting that. So Leon's connection with these subjects is very personal, very private, and you have to pick that out of the pictures yourself. And with Leon, I always felt the things he's revealing in the pictures were things that he would rather not reveal, kind of paradox. Now, the National Gallery being a collection of old pictures, it's almost curious why these great contemporary artists like Bacon, Auerbach, Lucian Freud was a regular visitor. I wouldn't see him in the daytime. He'd come at night time. He had what we called a privilege pass. So did Leon. Leon was given the privilege pass to enable him to come in out of hours, to look at the collection, to work from the collection. And in fact, when I was at the National Gallery, I became Leon's point of contact. And he loved Constable. And the picture I really want you to think about in terms of Constable, well, there's two. First of all, there's a drawing in this exhibition made from Constable's extraordinary, epic Salisbury Cathedral from the Meadows, which was a picture that was on long-term loan to the National Gallery. It's now in the Tate's collection, but Leon loved this picture and worked from it obsessively. He must have made hundreds of drawings and dry point prints from this picture. And of course, Constable, one of our great English romantic heroes, painted landscapes that were very personal to him. Leon did the same with Willesden, where he lived, a street in Willesden. Just look at the way this picture is painted, with the paint kind of piled up on top of each other. And Leon doesn't start a picture knowing where he's going to end up. Now, there are artists who will work like that. They get the whole thing all worked out, and they have an ambition in mind about what the picture's going to look like when it's finished. Leon is an artist, I think, about making discoveries. And that's why he drew from artists like Rubens and Veronese and Goya and Cézanne and Constable so often, because he wanted to discover in these artworks what made him attracted to them. And I remember a conversation I had with him about, why, Leon, do you draw the same picture again and again and again and again? And he said, because I draw it and I feel I'm getting near to it. I'm getting near to what makes me want to look at this picture and work from it again and again. I get so near, then I blink and it rushes off again. And so he has to start the whole process again. And I think with Leon, looking at, let's say, Constable Salisbury Cathedral, each time he saw this painting, it was the first time he'd seen it. London Underground stations are part of the kind of unappreciated architecture of London, particularly Kilburn. It's really dramatic because there's two railway bridges going across the street. And one of my first meetings with Leon in my student days, he walked me up to that underground station, 10 minutes from where his studio was, and he talked about his experience of it and the bridge zooming overhead. And I think it's the same going back to the Christchurch Spitalfields picture. He loved the idea of that great tower kind of reaching up to the heavens with you beneath it. And the relationship between Leon and the spaces is so important. And I don't mean it in terms of a personal relationship, I mean a physical relationship. And I think that's what he's looking at, say, Veronese or Rubens for. He wanted to articulate the figures within the spaces. And of course, the space in a picture is permanent. The figures aren't. The figures are passing through, whether it's the booking hall in Kilburn Underground, where all those figures are there one moment, they go off making their journeys, you can see the stairs that take you up to street level in the background. The next day the station's still there, the people are different. Likewise with this great epic picture behind me. I bumped into Leon in the Tate Gallery, and they had a big Jackson Pollock exhibition. And this must have been in the 1980s. And I'd been to that exhibition and got all excited about all these great iconic paintings by Pollock. And I went into the main gallery afterwards, after having a coffee, and I saw Leon in the Constable room. And I said, "Hi, Leon, how are you? I've just been to the Pollock exhibition. Have you seen it?" And he said, "Oh, yes, I've seen it." I said, "What did you think?" And he said, "Oh, yes, there's some nice things." And one of the great masters of the 20th century, "Oh, yeah, there are some nice things." And he took me over to a painting by Constable, and Leon pointed to a little area of about kind of 2 or 3 square inches. And he said, "Look at that. Everything Pollock had done, Constable had already done it." And I think that sums up Leon really, his devotion to learning from pictures that he loved. Drawing was always very important to Leon. The drawings he made in the National Gallery were one thing, but he's drawing in his studio from models, and he's also drawing out in the open. He will go to Christchurch Spitalfields, for example, or Kilburn Underground with a drawing board and actually start drawing from life. And he always talks about his paintings as if he was a student, as if he was always trying to learn how to draw. And I think when you look at his paintings, there is most certainly an element of drawing within there. Now, what do we mean by drawing? It's a word we kind of almost take for granted, but you draw a conclusion. It's an intellectual, it's a mental process, drawing. The other analogy that I always like to use is like a chest of drawers, a piece of furniture. You draw something out. And I think with Leon, his drawing is about that, about taking something out of what he's looking at and responding to. But also, when you look at the works on paper, the drawing isn't kind of neat and precise, kind of looking and measuring. But Leon, it's quite aggressive. And I always find his drawings, it's as if he's attacking the picture that he's looking at. That he's not drawing, let's say, Constable Salisbury Cathedral in a spirit of kind of homage or emulation. It's almost as if he's thinking, right, Constable, You've done that, I'm going to have a good go at trying to find out what it is in there that is motivating me. And there is a kind of anger in there, and even within the paintings themselves, you can sense this rapidity of working. And I think that's one of the things that he would often say about his work. It's trying to pin down a moment, and that moment is not something that's you can build up, say, I'll work on this painting today and tomorrow and the next week. Each picture is finished in one go, even though there might be 30 or 40 previous goes that he's tried and he's considered to be failures. And I think that's part of our enjoyment of them. We can see the previous attempts that no longer exist, but they are somehow feeding through into the final paint surface of the pictures. But ultimately, for Leon, everything was about drawing. The painting was almost an extension of his wishes to carry on drawing, to learn how to draw. One of the last conversations I had with Leon, we had a late Rembrandt exhibition at the National Gallery, just 3 or 4 years before Leon died, and he came to this exhibition early in the morning. He was quite frail then, and at the end of the exhibition there was this beautiful painting from Stockholm, beautiful late Rembrandt, of Simeon, profound meditation on old age and death, and Leon was standing in front of this picture. And I went up to him and I said, "Have you enjoyed the show?" And he just nodded and he said, "I've got to go home and I've just got to start again. Everything I've done, just know I have to start again."